Hey everyone, it's Katie McKelvin, the Director of Louisiana Fosters. Today we have Miss Beth Green with us today. She is the DCFS Manager of Home Development and Faith and Community Partnerships. Thank you for being here with us.
It's great to be here today, Katie.
Yeah, so we're going to just jump right in.
Okay.
I want to know what attracted you to child welfare.
Well, Katie, my mother was actually a child welfare worker.
Oh, wow.
My father also worked with the Office of Public Health in the Environmental Quality section. But in addition to that, my grandmother was a nurse. And early on, I was taught in the value of your fellow man. My grandmother had such a servant's heart. I watched my mother each and every day in the work that she did as a child welfare worker. But I really became interested in child welfare is I originally started out majoring in pre-law. I thought I wanted to be an attorney, but through the work of my church in college, we had a ministry that ministered to Louisiana Training Institute for juveniles, and I would go there and we would do birthday parties for them. And then in college, I also worked at the charity hospital, and I would see these young gentlemen come in and day out, and I thought, you know, they need hope. They need hope. They need to know that they can go on to lead happy, productive lives. Wow. And so my intent was to work with juvenile probation. And when I graduated, there was not that opportunity, so I accepted a position as an eligibility determination specialist, which is food stamps, working with food stamps.
Okay.
Through that, I saw the opportunity with child welfare, and so I began working with child welfare and foster care.
Oh, wow.
I was the liaison for Methodist Children's Home in Ruston, DCFS liaison for Methodist Children's Home in Ruston. Many of you know that Methodist Children's Home provides a residential program for teens to prepare them for life, but also to help them work through the trauma that they've experienced in their young lives. And so I did get the opportunity to work with young people as I originally intended, but that's how I came into work with child welfare. I worked with child welfare for a number of years in foster care, and I had one daughter at the time, and I decided that I wanted to spend more time at home raising my daughter, and so I left DCFS and just did some part-time work with our battered women's shelter so that I could focus on rearing my daughter. And subsequently I had a son. We had a son, my husband and I had a son, let me clarify that. And as he got some bit older, I knew I had to get back into child welfare work.
When you decided to get back working with children and families, what was the next job that you had after that?
Okay. When I returned to DCFS, I was a foster care worker.
Okay.
So I worked with children and families in efforts of reunification, working with the parents and preparing them to be the parents that they were called to be, working with the children to help them work through the issues that they had experienced because of abuse, neglect that led them into the system.
Right.
So I was a foster care worker, and then I had the opportunity to transfer to home development because within foster care, I gained such an admiration and respect for foster caregivers, the families that were caring for these children day in and day out, you know, meeting their needs, working with the parents in efforts towards reunification. And I had such a great admiration for foster caregivers that I transferred to the home development unit, which is the unit responsible for recruiting and supporting foster caregivers.
Right. So let's talk about your time at the Louisiana Baptist Children's Home.
Okay.
When did you start working for them?
Okay. After I had served as a recruiter for DCFS for foster caregivers, and then I was a supervisor in home development. In Louisiana Baptist Children's Home, the main campus is actually in Monroe, so we had done some work with them, and they were aware of my work with recruitment, and they approached me as they were being led to establish a ministry. They are a licensed child placing agency, but they wanted to establish a ministry to recruit foster caregivers throughout the state, but also too to work with churches to establish ministries to wrap support around those families as they were caring for the children day in and day out. And it was a very difficult decision because I love child welfare and I love DCFS, but I thought this will give me the opportunity to expand what I was already doing in recruiting and supporting foster caregivers.
So you helped create a program for Louisiana Baptist Children's Home. Tell us a little bit about that program.
Yes, the program, Connect 127. 127 is actually based on James 127. Pure and undefiled religion is this, to minister to orphans and widows in their distress. And when we look at the modern world, our parents that are struggling, that may have no support, you know, they can be compared to those widows. They need that extra support and help. Those children that have been removed from their families, they're modern day orphans. And so James Connect 127 was founded on that premise. What can we do to raise up families to be foster caregivers, but also help them to understand that not only are they ministering to that child or children, but to that father or their mother in efforts of helping them reunite with their children.
So you talked about Connect 127 and it being a way the community can wrap around a family. Can you talk to the point of the church being involved in that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, from the beginning of time, you know, family was the first institution. You know, we all have a biological mother, we all have a biological father. And then what we see is we see that community supports family. You know, in any religion, you know, support is key. Support for our fellow man is key. And within, I would say, the last 10 to 15 years, religion as a whole, denominations, different religions have recognized that we, as the congregations, are responsible to support our fellow man. You know, government is not the answer. As we all know, when we work through crisis, who helps us through that crisis? Our support system, our community. And faith as a whole has recognized this, and there's been a wonderful, wonderful movement to recognize that children are our future. We see that in the education system, we see that in child welfare. We also see that in the juvenile justice system, that we as a whole must do everything possible to prepare these children as they move into adulthood, to help them break that cycle. And it's been really, really exciting to watch this movement throughout the last 10 to 15 years for churches to grasp this idea and recognize this is our responsibility.
Yes.
And there are so many ways to do that. And I know that we'll probably talk about that in a minute, but just the idea that religion as a whole is recognizing, you know, a church or a synagogue or a mosque, you know, that is a building. People are inside the building so that they can be refreshed. But our service is outside that building within our community.
As a state, we have adopted a quality parenting initiative. The churches seem to be responding really well to this quality parenting initiative. Why do you think that is?
Okay, Katie, I think there's been such a great response to quality parenting, because quality parenting is an initiative that focuses on the entire system, not just the child welfare system, not just the court system, but the community as a whole.
Wow.
Because as I previously said, we recognize that community is the answer to preparing our children for life, but also too, when we look at quality parenting, there's a big focus on partnering with that biological father and that biological mother to hopefully reunite that family. When we look at religion, what we see in religion is that there's always redemption. We have been given first, second, third opportunities to be all that we can be. So within quality parenting, I believe that is why the church has embraced this so much, is because they've looked beyond why the child has come into care and recognized that that father and that mother need that opportunity. They deserve that opportunity to be all that they've been called to be. A parent didn't wake up one day and say, I want to abuse or neglect my child. And I will tell you, in all my years of child welfare, I've never met a biological family or parent that didn't love their child. I've met numerous parents that didn't know how to parent their child. It could have been because what they experienced as children, as young adults. Quite certainly, they probably didn't have some of the same opportunities that you and I had with support of family, with economic privilege, or whatever. So I think the church as a whole has recognized that we must not only minister to that child, but to the biological family as well. And I think that's why they've grasped on. I think that is why they've grasped onto this quality parenting initiative, because it surrounds the entire family.
Right, and it's reflective of most of their belief systems.
Yes, exactly.
So good. So when we look at the church, what is the secret to success for faith-based partners?
Okay. Having worked with so many faith-based partners, particularly churches, I think the key to success is that lead pastor or priest or rabbi, whomever, recognizes how important this is,
right,
and shares that from their point of leadership. It's very, very important that that lead person share from their point of leadership, because this is very, very serious and it's very, very needed. But even more than that, it can be very, very difficult work, but yet it's work that with any religion we are called to do, is to support families. So I think that is key. I think quite certainly there are lay people that can grasp on to the idea and run with it, but there must be support in that key leader, from that key leader.
Yes, that's good. So what is the biggest need right now for y'all in your
I will
position?
share that the biggest need, quite certainly, are for families to be willing to be foster caregivers, to provide homes for children and youth, but also to support those reunification efforts and supporting that biological family. That is our number one need. We are in desperate need of homes for teens, for larger sibling groups, and for special needs children.
So what are the requirements to become a foster family?
Okay. I always say that the first requirement for foster caregivers is the ability to look beyond the situation and know that there's always hope. There's always hope with that child. There's always hope with that family.
Yeah.
And quite certainly there are certain criteria that you must meet as a foster caregiver. You attend an orientation session that DCFS sponsors. Also, some of our faith-based sponsors are sponsoring orientations as well. And orientation is where you come to learn about the criteria to become a foster caregiver. Right. That's the first step. Quite certainly, there are certain criteria that you must meet. You have a criminal background check. You have a social services check to ensure that the family applying has never been involved with the child welfare system.
Okay.
There are certain minimum requirements for your home, but we work with you to determine if you meet those minimum requirements.
Okay, great. How can people find out more about fostering and becoming a partner?
Okay, there are several ways. You can contact your regional DCFS office, but the easiest way is to visit our website, www.dcfs.la.gov, but also to the Louisiana Foster's website, which we are so excited about, has information about becoming a foster caregiver, and that is www.lafosters@la.gov.
Fantastic. What I've been asking everybody at the end of these interviews is, if there are no boundaries, what do you want to see for families and children in our state?
If there were no boundaries, what I would love to see, if there was a surplus of foster caregivers to care for families in need, but even before that, if community partners could grasp prevention, what can we do with these families so that children don't have to enter care? Yes. You're familiar with the Families First Act. That was recently passed into legislation, and it focuses a great deal on prevention services. What can our community partners do to join us in prevention efforts? But beyond that, with children in care, in the foster care system, that our biological families receive that support and those services that they need, so that their homes can be safe for their children, so that they know how to be that parent, so that they have the skills and are equipped financially, emotionally, to be the parents that they're called to be, so that that family can be happy and whole.
So attack that problem on the front end. Yeah.
Attack the problem on the front end.
That's amazing.
Attack the problem on the front end, but also have the resources to truly meet the needs within working with those families as well.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This information is vital for our community and to push us forward and to help in whatever way we can. So thank you for your time and your willingness to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Katie. It's been an honor.